our Director of Benefits, joining us. We
So,
also have Rob Fox, our President of CBB, joining us. And we're just thrilled to have each of you, our administrators and employers, with us to spend some time and just talk through hopefully a topic that is very helpful and informative for you. So before we go any further, I'm going to ask Nicole to go over just a few housekeeping items and the agenda, and we'll go from there.
good morning. It's great to see everybody this morning. Few housekeeping items. We ask that you please stay muted during the presentation. If you have questions, please write them down or you can type them in the chat. We will respond to those questions at the end of each of the sessions. We are recording this presentation so we can share it with anybody that was unable to attend today. So you all be on the lookout because you will get a follow-up email, which will include this presentation. And at the end of the presentation, we should have some time where we can answer any general type questions that you all may have. Then the agenda, basically we are going to go over 3 items. The first one will be the participant deposit detail report, and then the pending contribution tab, and the payroll history tool. And then we'll go over why do these reports and tools matter and why are they important. So I will hand it back over to Jenny so she can start the presentation.
Awesome. Thanks, Nicole.
Sure.
I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. And if you guys are able, I'd recommend going ahead and logging into the Empower Plan Service Center. You can kind of follow along to what steps we go through and see how it's just run these reports while we go for your specific church and employer. So I think that would be helpful. So I went ahead and logged in to the Employer Plan Service Center. Can everybody just give me a thumbs up that you can see my screen? Awesome, thank you. This is the dashboard. And one thing you may notice or see this week and leading up to December, I've already hit the X button on it, so you can't see it on my screen. But there's a notice that says, hey, remember there's RMDs and people need to take out their required minimum distributions. That reminder is for us as plan sponsors. We are working with our participants who are required to take those RMDs this year and making sure that those distributions happen. That's not anything you need to do. So you can just click that X on that little notice and it'll go away. And as you can see, it did for this training division. So we're going to start with a report called the Participant Deposit Detail. Now, first, I want to draw your guys' attention to the Reports tab here. You're going to just simply click that arrow and go to Standard Reports. There are many reports that you all can run in this section of Empower. We're just going to highlight one that we feel is the most helpful for our employers to do a reconciliation of what contributions have been submitted to employee accounts so that you can compare that to your internal payroll records. So as you can see, the first tab is my favorites. I found this participant deposit detail report under the contributions tab. Once you get in here and you look at all of these reports that you can pull, you can star your favorite report and it's going to show up on this My Favorites tab. So it's easily accessible. It's right there when you first go to your standard report screen. So we're going to go ahead and click on Participant Deposit Detail. So there's lots of options here. We're going to go through each one. Division. Division is simply means the employer that we want to look at. So most of you are only managing one church or one employer. So when you do this drop down, you're only going to see one option, your own church or employer. Some of you may be managing multiple, and if you are, then you're going to see both or all of those listed, and you'll just select the division that you want to pull the information for. So for this one, we're going to do the GPP training division. The date indicator, there's 2 options. You can do effective date or payroll date. I tend to think it's always most helpful to do payroll date. So then you can go back and just see in order the different contributions that were submitted. Effective date is helpful if you had to maybe submit multiple backdated contributions, say you fell behind, and so you had to do a correction and you submitted, let's say, 5 payrolls um, on one day. Let's hope that doesn't happen, but it does. Um, and then you could just run an effective date and it'll show you all the contributions that were pulled for that effective date. But we're going to do payroll date today. Money source. If you remember, when you go in to submit contributions, you're choosing employer basic, you're choosing employer matching, employee deferrals. That's what's listed here. We have a number of these. So in order to make sure we're capturing everything, we're going to choose all money types. Okay. This is also helpful to make sure that maybe something wasn't accidentally clicked when you were submitting contributions. You can make sure and confirm that the money sources you were intending are the ones that were submitted. Deposit type. So we're going to specifically be honing in on payroll contributions. Now, I know that word payroll gets everybody tripped up, but these are retirement contributions. They're not sinking into your payroll. So just keep that in mind. The report type. This is an option that we're going to show you the differences between the detail and the summary report. The first one we're going to do is detail. It's going to show every pay period submitted for every employee for the date that we choose. So we'll show you what that looks like in just a second. Subtotals, you can include or exclude subtotals for each employee if you have multiple. The identifier, there's 3 options. You can do the employer assigned number, which is what you can assign your employees if you choose to. Not all employers do that. You can do the full SSN or protected. For most cases, when you guys are pulling these reports, the protected SSN is probably sufficient. So I always like to get in the practice of making sure that's what's selected. And the sort order, participant ID or participant name. I think it's always easiest to do it by name. We want to select all our employees, but if you wanted to, you could separate by age. And then the type of reports that we're going to go over today are Excel and PDF. So this first option, we're going to choose Excel, and we're going to show you the differences of what those look like. In general, Excel is going to give you way more information, and then the PDF is a little bit more simplified. So we'll show you how. Frequency. This is super helpful. If you love this report and you want to use this regularly, you could choose your selections, whether you want summary or detailed, subtotals or not. And you can tell Empower to run this every month, every quarter, every week, depending on your payroll schedule. And what they'll do is, let's say we set it for monthly. We set it there, it chooses the dates, and then you'll get an email from Empower after it runs, and it'll say, hey, that report's done. You can go look at it. So it's just a reminder for you that you can go in and double check and reconcile what's been submitted versus your internal records. For today, we're just going to do a report for now. We're going to choose the beginning of the year and to October. One thing to keep in mind, the Empower report system only can do 12-month periods at a time. So let's say you wanted to go back and look at 24 months, then you'd have to run 2 reports for those 12 consecutive monthly periods. But it can go back a long ways. So just keep that in mind as you're choosing your dates. And then you could choose whether or not to send you that email notification when the report is done pulling. And we're going to click submit. Now, in your report section, once you click submit, you're going to see the status that it's running. Now, for most of our employers who only have a few employees, it doesn't take long for this report to generate. So you could simply click refresh view, and there you go. It's already done. You can view the Excel. You're going to click this and click download, and you'll be able to open it up in Excel. We've already prepared these reports, these examples. So I'm going to go ahead and switch over here to the detailed Excel sheet. Now, as you can see, we've blocked out some information for the protection of our divisions and employees, but we wanted to show you the data that this Excel spreadsheet can pull. As I said, Excel is a lot more robust. So you're going to get a lot of information. But what's nice about this is you can get the information that you're looking for and pare it down. Hide the columns you don't want, delete the columns you don't want. But it has the payroll dates. You could see in column O, you've got the payroll dates for each employee, and it's going to list all employees in order. So as you can see, this is the same employee here. You can see each payroll date, the money source, and it's going to give you the money source code and the description, which is helpful if you don't know those codes by heart, which we don't expect you to. It's probably helpful to have a cheat sheet if you need one, and then the amount that was submitted. Now you can see all these columns of information usually don't apply, but then we also have our effective date, our event IDs, and then again, the amounts. And it also has address information and everything about the employee. Again, lots of information, possibly more than what you need. Now, I want to show you also, so remember, this is the detail. So we went through and we chose the detailed Excel report. If you chose the summary Excel report, we're not going to go through all those selections again, but if you chose the summary Excel report, it's much more simplified. As you can see, the system is simply taking all the contributions that were submitted for employee A and telling you what money source that was contributed to that individual's account and the total amount. And it's doing that for each employee. Now, I want to take a moment and just highlight this financial wellness money source. So this is a money source that is from Church Benefits Board. If you have an employee that went through our financial planning process, as many of you may remember, we have a grant for your employees that if they complete this financial planning process with Empower, Church Benefits Board, through a grant that we've received, will deposit a $500 contribution into your employee's accounts. So this employee completed that process and received that grant. So that's what you see there. That's not a mistake. That's from us. So that is the Excel summary. Now, I think you guys are going to like how the PDF looks because it's much more condensed and simplified. So if you were to choose on that set of options, the summary PDF, I'm sorry, detailed PDF. This is the detailed PDF. You'll see you're not getting all those columns. It's only choosing the most important columns that you need, that the system thinks you need. But one thing I think it does leave out that is helpful is that money source description. This is where it would be helpful to have like a cheat sheet of what the different money sources are that your church uses. ERB1 is basic. I'm not going to try to rattle them off right now because I'll get them wrong. But when you submit your contributions, you can see those little identifier codes and the descriptions right there. So it has each employee listed here on a simple PDF. So that might be more helpful for you depending on what you're pulling this report for. And then it gives you the total for the church that you've submitted for that time frame. So that is the detail. And I think you're going to like this one even more. This is the summary. So this is super simple. All your primary needed columns, the employees, how much has been submitted for each employee, and the total that's been submitted for whatever time period you chose. So these reports I use probably daily, and I could see how they would be really helpful for our churches, especially as we're getting to the end of the year. You want to be doing some checks and balances. You want to say, okay, this is how much we should have contributed to our employees' account for the year. Let me make sure we're on track to hit that by December. Another really important reason to use these reports is limits testing. So this is something that is the responsibility of the employer. These are limits that the IRS sets forth for how much employees can contribute to their account every year. So for 2024, the limit for employee pre-tax voluntary contributions is $23,000. So when you pull this report for this employee, the BEF1 is the employee pre-tax voluntary money source. we want to make sure this employee isn't over 23,000. There's also an age 50 catch up. So if you have someone who's over the age of 50, that limit goes up an additional $7,500. So they are able to do 30,500. So you just need to have those in mind as you're helping your employees plan for their retirement. There are many employees who intentionally want to hit that limit every year. They want to get the most out of their retirement account every year. So as you're helping in the new year, you're planning your employee deferrals, just keep those limits in mind. I'm going to pause. I'm going to take a breath and see if anybody has any questions about that specific report, the Excel or the PDF. Does anybody have any thoughts or questions about that? And you're welcome to come off mute and ask your question. Doesn't seem like there are any. So great. Also, please feel free to put any questions in the chat if you'd rather do that, then we'll get them at the end. So now I'm going to pass it over to Nicole. She's going to go through the pending contributions tab.
Jenny, you must have done a wonderful job explaining that. No question.
Good.
So yes, I am going to go over the pending contributions tab and then the payroll history tool. So let's start back at the pending contribution tab, which you can find that over on the left-hand side. If you click on the right arrow beside payroll, you'll get a drop down. And if you scroll down, you will see the pending contributions. We hope that each of you, when you do submit a retirement contribution, that afterward that you will get into the habit of going into this pending contribution tab just to make sure that you have submitted the contribution fully. So when you go into this tab, there are 3 different sections. The first section will actually show any pending contributions that have not been completed. And if you have one sitting here, what you will need to do is one of 2 things. You can either click on the trash can to delete this transaction altogether and start over, or you can click on the blue reference number, and this will take you back to the contribution. It will give you all the details that you have, the data that you have typed in. And once you see that that is correct, then you can click continue to final confirmation, and it will take you back through to complete this contribution. The second section is any contributions that you have completed with the current cash effective date. So you can see that I have put in a contribution here with the payroll date of today, November 12th, with a cash effective date of November 12th. These contributions will be completed as of 3 p.m. on the 12th. So when you go back in, or if you go back in on the 13th, this will not be sitting here in section 2.
Yeah, and everything's based on Eastern time. So 3 p.m.
Yes.
Eastern, in case we have churches in different time zones listening.
Thank you, Jenny.
Mm-hmm.
The third section is contributions that are completed as well, but these are with a future cash effective date. So you see I have entered one with a payroll date of November 29th with a future cash effective date of November 29th. This is going to sit here until the end of the day on November 29th. You can make any changes to this contribution up until November 29th. The pending contribution tab is very important. It's a quick glance to see what you make sure you have fully submitted, what you have wanted to fully submit, and just to see what you have out there that you have scheduled for a future processing date. So I'm going to take a pause and see if anybody has any questions for me.
We have a lot of people, just as a little note, like sometimes you'll get into submitting a contribution and for whatever reason you maybe get kicked out or your internet goes down or you get pulled away and you don't get to finish it. Oh, we see so many of these contributions sitting here and pending. So it doesn't hurt to just every once in a blue moon or every once in a while. I mean, if you're not doing it after every contribution submission, like Nicole suggested, it is good to just click pending contributions and make sure you don't have any files that are just sitting there that shouldn't be. So
Now, I
just
will
an FYI.
say, we check our pending contributions regularly, so you will get an email from one of us if we do see it sitting there for a while and it's past due a little bit. We're not going to let it go too long, but just so you all can get into the practice of checking it yourself. But yes, we have your back. We are
We
watching
do.
behind you.
Yep. Yep. Very good.
Okay, so if there's no questions on the pending contribution tab, let's move on to the payroll history tool. And that is back under payroll over on the left-hand side. And the payroll history tool will give you the last 12 months of any contributions that you have submitted. Again, some of you all may manage more than one division. If you do, at the top of the screen, you will see a filter. You're not going to see it here because we are in our division training, and that's the only one we have access to. But if you do, you can do the drop down and then you can choose which division that you're actually looking to review your payroll history for. Across the top, you'll see some different tabs. You'll see payroll date, division, amount, the total amount you have submitted, the event ID, which we also call a reference number, the submission date, and the cash effective date that you actually submitted. And then you'll see some statuses over on the right-hand side. And there's actually 4 statuses that you could see. The first one is the funding received status. That basically means the clearinghouse has confirmed that the funds are there and that upon the cash effective date, those funds will be moved from your checking account. Pending contributions, that is basically what we just talked about. If you see a contribution here with a status of pending contributions, that just means you need to go back over to the pending contribution tab and either delete the transaction and resubmit or click on that blue reference number and finish submitting it. And then canceled. This will show you any contributions that you have canceled to make sure if you're wondering, did it actually cancel? This will confirm for you that you see that the amount has gone to 0 beside that contribution and that it is canceled. One status that you're not going to see here is complete status. And basically, the complete status means that the monies have left your checking account and they are now in the employee's retirement account and they are able to view those funds. If you go back over to the left-hand side, on the left-hand side of payroll date, you have a piece of paper and you have a blue arrow. If you click on that blue arrow, it's going to give you a quick snapshot of your money sources. So you have the amount of $500 that was submitted. Now clicking on that blue arrow will actually break out those money sources just to make sure that you have put the monies where the source that they need to go. Then if you click on the piece of paper, it gives you more of a participant detail. So you can, you see the list there. If you have 10, 15 employees and you want to just look at a certain employee, you'll see over to the right beside details by participant, you can type in their last name or you can type in their social security number, excuse me, and it will pull them up. The payroll history report or tool is very important for a few reasons. One, if you forget to print your confirmation receipt when you are submitting, this is another place you can go so you can have that. So you're going to go back up to the top underneath the blue go button. There's your print icon, and you can click on there to print or save it as a PDF. And then also, this is a great quick snapshot. If you don't feel like pulling a payroll history report, you can go here and you can get a quick snapshot, just a glance to see what you have submitted for the last year. So I'm going to pause again, and I think there was a question in the chat. Let me find the chat. There it is. Michelle, I try to put in contributions early. Sometimes the effective dates have changed from what was selected when I look back at the pending contributions tab. It most often happens if I enter the entire month at a time. I just do a week or two early now and have not ran into that again. Is this something that has happened to anyone else?
So Michelle, I want to make sure I understand what was happening. When you would go in to do perhaps a month's contributions, the payroll date would change or the effective date would change. And you're welcome to come off mute if you don't mind. And you can clarify.
I think Michelle said the effective date, and she doesn't have a mic.
Oh, okay, no problem. So that's interesting. I'd have to look into that. The only reason why sometimes the effective date sometimes changes is if you're trying to select a holiday and Empower isn't open or a weekend. So payrolls and contributions can't be processed on weekends or holidays. So the system will generate the next business day to process. So if perhaps maybe Sundays are your payroll day typically and you choose Sunday, it's going to go in on Monday. I don't know if maybe that's happening, but we'll definitely keep an eye out for that. And if it happens again, Michelle, just let us know and we'll look into it further. But thank you for asking that.
Yes, thank you. Any other questions? Okay, if there aren't any more questions, we are going to go ahead and turn off our recording. And we have some time just if there are any general questions, even if it doesn't have anything to do with reports. If you have any questions for us, we would love to answer them before we end.
Okay, and Nicole, can you stop the recording? I think.
Yeah.